The champagne bottle sat unopened on our kitchen counter, condensation beading down its dark green glass. I'd bought it that morning, a vintage Dom Perignon, the kind Sarah always said was too expensive for just any occasion. But today wasn't just any occasion. Today was the day my wife would finally hear about the promotion she'd been chasing for 3 years. I adjusted the candles on the dining table for the third time, checking my watch. 7:30 p.m. She was running late, but that was normal. Sarah's job at Hartwell & Associates had always demanded long hours, and I'd learned to be patient. That's what marriage was about, after all, supporting each other's dreams. My phone buzzed. Finally. Don't wait up for dinner. Something came up at work. I stared at the message, feeling the familiar sting of disappointment. But I pushed it aside. She was under so much pressure. Once she got this promotion to senior vice president, things would settle down. We'd talked about it, how we'd finally start trying for kids, maybe take that trip to Italy we'd been planning since our honeymoon 7 years ago. The door finally opened at 10:47 p.m. I'd fallen asleep on the couch, and the candles had burned down to stubs. Sarah. I called out, rubbing my eyes. How did it go? Did Mitchell tell you about? She walked into the living room, and I immediately knew something was different. Her posture was straighter, her chin higher. She was wearing the navy Armani suit I'd never seen before, and her hair was styled in a sharp bob that replaced her usual softer waves. I got it, she said flatly, setting down her briefcase with a decisive thud. Senior Vice President, effective immediately. I jumped up, grinning. Sarah. That's incredible. I bought champagne, we can still. Michael, sit down. We need to talk. The tone of her voice made my stomach drop. It was the voice she used with difficult clients, not with me. Never with me. I sat slowly, watching as she remained standing, creating a physical hierarchy that felt intentional. I've been doing a lot of thinking, she began, pulling out a manila envelope from her briefcase. This promotion changes everything. I'll be traveling constantly, New York, London, Singapore. I'll be managing a team of 40 people and handling accounts worth hundreds of millions of dollars. That's amazing, honey. We'll figure it out together. We always. There is no we anymore, Michael. She placed the envelope on the coffee table between us. I need to be completely focused on my career right now. You've always been comfortable with your job at the publishing house. That's fine for you. But I need more. I need someone who matches my ambition, who operates at my level. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. What are you saying? I'm saying that these are divorce papers. I had my attorney draw them up last week, after I got confirmation about the promotion. She spoke as if she were presenting a business proposal, each word measured and clinical. I'm offering you the condo. It's paid off. You can keep the Honda. I've already moved my essential items to my new apartment in Manhattan, the one with the view of Central Park. Last week. I whispered. You've been planning this for a week and didn't say anything. I didn't see the point in drawing it out. You can review the terms with a lawyer, but I think you'll find them fair. More than fair, actually. I don't want this to get ugly. I stood up, my hands shaking. Sarah, this is insane. We've been married for 7 years. We have a life together. You can't just throw it away because of a promotion. For the first time, emotion flickered across her face, but it was irritation, not sadness. I'm not throwing anything away. I'm choosing my future. Maybe if you'd shown even half the drive I have, things would be different. But you've always been content to just coast. I need a partner who pushes me forward, not one who holds me back. I never held you back. My voice cracked. I supported every late night, every missed dinner, every cancelled plan. I believed in you. And I appreciate that, Michael. I do. But appreciation isn't enough anymore. She checked her watch, a new Rolex I'd never seen. I have an early meeting tomorrow. I'd prefer if you could sign these within the week. My attorney will be in touch. She turned toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, you're a good man. You'll make someone very happy someday. Someone who wants a simple, quiet life." The door closed behind her with a soft click that sounded like a gunshot in the silence. I stood there for a long time, staring at the manila envelope on the table. The champagne bottle still sat on the counter, unopened. The candles had melted into puddles of wax. And somewhere in the ruins of my life, a small, stubborn voice whispered, "Remember this feeling. Remember this moment." I didn't know it then, but that whisper would change everything. The first 3 months were hell. I'd wake up reaching for someone who wasn't there, make coffee for 2 out of habit, and find myself staring at the empty closet where Sarah's clothes used to hang. My friends told me to fight the divorce, to demand more, but I didn't have the energy. I signed the papers, kept the condo and the Honda, and watched my marriage dissolve like sugar in water. My brother Jake flew in from Seattle when I stopped returning his calls. He found me unshaven, surrounded by takeout containers, binge-watching cooking shows at 2 a.m. "Jesus, Mike," he said, opening curtains I'd kept closed for weeks. "This has got to stop." "She threw away 7 years like it meant nothing," I mumbled. "Said I wasn't ambitious enough. That I was holding her back." Jake sat down heavily beside me. "Then prove her wrong." "What?" "You heard me. She thinks you're just coasting. Show her, show yourself, what you're actually capable of." He grabbed the remote and turned off the TV. "You've been sitting on that novel manuscript for 5 years. You've got that business plan you sketched out on napkins. You've been playing it safe because Sarah liked predictable. Well, Sarah's gone. What do you want?" The question hit me like cold water. What did I want? For 7 years, I'd shaped my life around Sarah's career, her schedule, her ambitions. I'd taken the steady job at Heartbreak Publishing because it had regular hours and good benefits. I'd put my own dreams in a drawer labeled Someday. Someday was now. That night, I pulled out my manuscript, a thriller I'd been working on since college. I read through it with fresh eyes, cringing at some parts, surprised by others. It needed work. A lot of work. But it was good. The bones were solid. I also found that Napkin Business Plan, a concept for a digital platform that would connect independent authors directly with readers, cutting out traditional publishing middlemen. It was ambitious, maybe crazy. Exactly the kind of thing the old Michael would have been too afraid to attempt. The next morning, I called my boss at Heartbreak Publishing and gave my 2 weeks' notice. "Are you sure about this, Michael?" Martha asked, concern in her voice. "The divorce. Maybe you shouldn't make any major decisions right now." I've never been more sure of anything in my life. I threw myself into my new life with an intensity that surprised me. I woke at 5 a.m. to write before spending my days teaching myself coding and business development. I networked with indie authors, attended startup meetups, and pitched my platform idea to anyone who would listen. My best friend from college, Ramon, believed in the vision enough to come on board as co-founder. He handled the technical side while I focused on content and author relations. We called it Page Turner, and we launched a beta version 9 months after my divorce was finalized. The first year was brutal. Ramon and I worked from my condo, living on ramen and coffee, pouring every cent into development. But slowly, authors started signing up. Then readers. Our algorithm matched readers with books based on their actual reading patterns, not just bestseller lists. It worked. I finished my novel on a red-eye flight to a pitch meeting in San Francisco. 6 months later, I had an agent. 3 months after that, a publishing deal. Not a huge one, but legitimate. My thriller, The Last Honest Man, would be in bookstores by the following spring. I didn't just transform professionally. I transformed physically too. The gym became my therapy. Every painful push-up was a reminder that I was rebuilding myself from the ground up. I lost 30 pounds, gained muscle, grew out my beard, and updated my wardrobe. Not for Sarah, but for me. By year 2, Page Turner had secured venture capital funding. We moved into real offices in downtown Brooklyn, hired 15 employees, and hit 1 million active users. My novel debuted at number 8 on the New York Times bestseller list. Ramon and I were featured in TechCrunch as disruptors to watch. I dated occasionally, but nothing serious. I was busy building something real, and I liked the person I was becoming, confident, driven, purpose-filled. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd become the ambitious man Sarah claimed to want, but only after she left. I thought about her sometimes, usually late at night when the work was done. I wondered if she was happy, if the promotion had been everything she'd hoped for. I never reached out. That door was closed. Then, exactly 4 years and 2 months after she'd served me those divorce papers, my phone rang with an unknown number. "Michael? It's Sarah." Her voice was different, smaller somehow, stripped of that corporate confidence. "Sarah." I said her name like I was testing its weight. "It's been a while." "I know. I'm sorry to call out of the blue. I heard about your success. Page Turner and your book. Congratulations." "Thank you." I kept my voice neutral, professional. "I was wondering if we could meet. For coffee. I'm back in the area, and I'd really like to talk." Every instinct screamed at me to say no, to protect the life I'd rebuilt. But curiosity won out. "All right. When?" "Tomorrow. There's that cafe we used to go to on Sundays. Russo's." I remember. 2 p.m. As I hung up, I caught my reflection in the window. The man staring back wasn't the one she'd left 4 years ago. This man had been forged in fire, rebuilt from ruins. Tomorrow, I'd find out what Sarah wanted. But whatever it was, I already knew one thing with absolute certainty. I didn't need her anymore. And that felt like the greatest victory of all. Russo's hadn't changed in 4 years. The same mismatched chairs, the same jazz playing softly in the background, the same smell of fresh ground coffee and vanilla. But I had changed, and apparently, so had Sarah. I arrived 15 minutes early, ordering a black coffee and claiming our old corner table out of habit. At exactly 2 p.m., the door chimed, and she walked in. I almost didn't recognize her. The sharp, polished executive from 4 years ago had been replaced by someone who looked tired. Her suit was still expensive but hung a bit loose, as if she'd lost weight. The confident stride was gone, replaced by hesitant steps. When our eyes met, she attempted a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Michael," she said softly, sliding into the chair across from me. "Thank you for meeting me." "Sarah." I nodded, studying her with the detachment of an anthropologist examining an artifact from his past. "You look different." "So do you." Her gaze traveled over me, the tailored jacket, the gym-earned physique, the confidence I wore like armor. "You look really good. Happy." "I am." There was no arrogance in my statement, just fact. She ordered a tea from the passing waiter, then folded her hands on the table. I noticed her nails were bitten short, Sarah, who'd had weekly manicures as religiously as church services. "I've been following your success," she began. "Page Turner is everywhere now. I saw you on the Today Show last month, talking about your novel. And the TED Talk about disrupting traditional publishing, that was brilliant." "Thank you." The silence stretched between us like taffy. Finally, she took a deep breath. "I'm sure you're wondering why I called." The thought crossed my mind. "I wanted to." She paused, choosing words carefully. "I wanted to apologize. For how I ended things. For what I said that night. You didn't deserve that." I sipped my coffee, letting her continue. "That promotion, it wasn't what I thought it would be. The travel was relentless. The politics at that level were cutthroat. I barely slept, barely ate. Every quarter was a battle to justify my position." She laughed bitterly. "I thought reaching the top would make me happy. It just made me exhausted." "What happened?" I asked, genuine curiosity breaking through my defenses. Hartwell & Associates merged with a London firm 18 months ago. They restructured, and I got pushed out. They called it early retirement with a severance package, but we both know what that means. She stirred her tea absently. "I'm 42, Michael, and I'm basically starting over. The industry thinks I'm either overqualified or too expensive for the positions available. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, and surprisingly, I meant it. There was no satisfaction in seeing her broken. I've been doing consulting work, but it's not. She trailed off, then met my eyes directly. I made a mistake. Leaving you was the biggest mistake of my life. There it was. The real reason for this meeting. Sarah. Please, let me finish. She leaned forward, urgency creeping into her voice. I was so focused on climbing the ladder that I didn't see what I already had. You were kind, supportive, stable. You would have been an amazing father. We could have built something real together. We did build something real, I said quietly. And you demolished it the day you got what you wanted. I know. Tears glistened in her eyes. And I've regretted it every single day. When I saw your success, how you flourished without me, it made me realize what an idiot I was. You were never the problem, Michael. I was. She reached across the table, her hand hovering near mine. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking if there's any chance, any possibility, that we could try again. Start over. We were good together once. I looked at her hand, then at her face, at the desperation poorly masked as hope. 4 years ago, I would have given anything to hear these words. I'd spent months imagining a scenario where she realized her mistake and came back. But that was a different Michael. A man who measured his worth by someone else's approval. Do you remember what you said to me that night? I asked. You said I was too comfortable, that I didn't match your ambition, that you needed someone who operated at your level. She winced. I was cruel. I'm so sorry. No, you were honest. Brutal, but honest. And you know what? You were right. Confusion crossed her face. What? I was coasting. I was playing it safe, living small. I had dreams I was too scared to chase because rejection hurt less than failure. You leaving, as much as it destroyed me, it also freed me. It forced me to become who I was always capable of being. Then you understand, she said hopefully. We both made mistakes. We've both grown. Maybe now. Sarah, why do you want me back? Really? She blinked. Because I love you. Because we were happy. Were we? I interrupted gently. Or were we comfortable? Did you love me, or did you love having someone who made no demands, who never challenged you, who fit neatly into the margins of your life? That's not fair. Maybe not. So answer me this. Would you be sitting here if you were still Senior VP at Hartwell & Associates? If you were still traveling the world, managing those huge accounts? The silence was damning. I didn't think so, I said. You don't want me, Sarah. You want the stability you gave up. You want someone to catch you because you're falling. But I'm not a safety net. Michael, please. I've moved on. I'm seeing someone. The lie slipped out easily because it protected something true. My new life, my hard-won peace. She's a literary agent. Smart, funny, ambitious in her own right. We push each other to be better. It wasn't entirely a lie. I was casually dating Emma, though nothing was official. But Sarah didn't need to know the details. She pulled her hand back as if burned. Oh. I hope you find what you're looking for, I said, meaning it. And I hope you find it in yourself, not in someone else. That's the only way it'll last. I stood, dropping a 20 on the table. Take care of yourself, Sarah. As I walked toward the door, she called out, Michael. I turned back. I really am proud of you. For what it's worth. I nodded once, then stepped out into the afternoon sunshine. My hands were shaking as I walked to my car, but it was adrenaline, not heartbreak. I'd faced the ghost of my past and found it had no power over me anymore. My phone buzzed. Ramon, meeting with Amazon exec confirmed for next week. She wants to discuss acquisition. We're talking 8 figures, man. I grinned, typing back, guess we should get our lawyers ready. 4 years ago, Sarah had handed me divorce papers on the day of her greatest triumph. Today, I'd handed her something far more valuable: closure. But our story wasn't quite over yet. 6 months after the coffee shop meeting, Page Turner was acquired by Amazon for $47 million. Ramon and I retained creative control and stayed on as executives, but the payout was life-changing. My second novel hit #1 on the Times list for 3 consecutive weeks. And Emma, who'd been casual dating, became decidedly not casual. She moved into the condo I'd once shared with Sarah, helping me finally erase the last ghosts from those walls. Life was good. Better than good. Extraordinary. Then, on a random Tuesday in March, my phone rang with a number I vaguely recognized. Sarah's brother, David. Michael? It's David Chen. I hope it's okay that I'm calling. David, hey. Of course. How are you? A long pause. I'm all right. Listen, I wanted to give you a heads up about something. About Sarah. My stomach tightened. Is she okay? Physically, yes. But... He sighed heavily. She's in a bad place, Mike. After the consulting work dried up, she burned through her savings pretty quickly. Manhattan rent isn't cheap. She had to move back in with Mom and Dad 6 weeks ago. I closed my eyes, picturing Sarah, proud, independent Sarah, living in her childhood bedroom at 43. She's been applying everywhere, but her reputation in the industry, let's just say the politics she played at Hartwell, came back to haunt her. Nobody wants to touch her with a 10-foot pole. David's voice cracked. She pretends she's fine, but I hear her crying at night. Mom's worried sick. David, I appreciate you telling me, but I'm not sure what you expect me to. Nothing. I don't expect anything. But she told me about your coffee meeting, about what she asked. I thought you deserved to know how things shook out. He paused. For what it's worth, I think you made the right call. Sarah needs to figure her own shit out. I guess I wanted someone to know the truth. The mighty Sarah Chen isn't so mighty anymore. After we hung up, I sat in my office overlooking the Brooklyn Bridge, wrestling with complicated feelings. I didn't want Sarah back. That chapter was definitively closed. But I didn't wish her destruction either. Despite everything, she'd been a significant part of my life once. Emma found me there an hour later, staring out the window. Penny for your thoughts, she asked, sliding her arms around me from behind. I told her about David's call. Emma listened quietly, then kissed my cheek. You're a good man, Michael Cross. Want to know what I think? Tell me. I think you're wrestling with your savior complex. Part of you wants to rescue her because that's who you are. You fix things, you help people. But Sarah didn't just break your heart. She shattered your sense of self-worth. And you rebuilt it piece by piece without her help. She turned me to face her. The question isn't whether she deserves help. It's whether helping her would cost you the peace you've earned. She was right. She was always right. That weekend, I made a decision. I didn't call Sarah. Instead, I called her father, Howard Chen, who'd always treated me like a son during our marriage. Michael. His voice boomed with genuine warmth. How wonderful to hear from you. I've been following your success. We all have. You've done remarkably well. Thank you, Howard. Listen, I heard Sarah's going through a difficult time. I wanted to reach out, but not directly to her. I appreciate your discretion. There's a position opening at Page Turner, Director of Content Partnerships. It's a real job, Howard, not charity. It requires someone with publishing experience and corporate relationships. Sarah would actually be qualified. Howard was quiet for a moment. Why would you do this? After how she treated you? Because holding on to anger is exhausting, I said honestly. And because everyone deserves a chance to rebuild. I did it. Maybe she can too. This is incredibly generous. There are conditions. She'd have to apply through proper channels, no special treatment. She'd report to our VP of Content, not to me. And she'd have to interview like any other candidate. If she's not the best fit, she doesn't get it. Understood. One more thing. Don't tell her this came from me. I don't want gratitude or reconnection. I want her to succeed on her own merit. After we hung up, Emma squeezed my hand. You just gave your ex-wife a lifeline. No, I corrected. I gave her an opportunity. What she does with it is up to her. 3 weeks later, Ramon stuck his head into my office. Interesting development. Sarah Chen applied for the content director position. She's qualified on paper. Should I screen her out to avoid drama? Absolutely not. Treat her like any other applicant. Sarah made it through 3 rounds of interviews. Our VP of content, Michelle, called her whip-smart but clearly humbled by experience, in a good way. The team debated between her and 2 other candidates, ultimately offering her the position based on her extensive industry contacts and her fresh perspective on digital publishing. She accepted immediately. Her first day was a Tuesday. I made sure to be in LA for meetings, letting her settle in without the awkwardness of running into me. But that Friday, as I was leaving for the weekend, I saw her in the lobby, waiting for the elevator. Our eyes met. Michael, she said quietly, I didn't know you'd be here. I thought. I travel a lot, I said neutrally. Congratulations on the position. Michelle speaks highly of you. Thank you. She hesitated. I want you to know I had no idea you worked here when I applied. Your name isn't on the website, and the acquisition news mentioned you'd stepped back to focus on writing. When I showed up on day 1 and saw your photo in the lobby. She laughed nervously. I almost walked out. Why didn't you? Because I need this. Not just the job, the chance. And I promised myself I wouldn't squander another opportunity by being proud or stupid. She met my eyes directly. I'm good at this work, Michael. I'll prove it. You won't regret hiring me. I didn't hire you. Michelle did. And for what it's worth, I hope you succeed here. The elevator arrived. We stepped in together, the silence stretching between us like years. Michael, she said as we neared her floor. Thank you. For whatever part you played in this, if any. And if you didn't, thank you for building something good enough that I'd want to be part of it. She stepped off on the 7th floor, leaving me alone with my reflection in the polished elevator doors. Emma was right. Helping Sarah didn't cost me my peace. If anything, it affirmed the man I'd become, someone who could offer grace without expectation, who could be kind without being weak. But I still had one more surprise up my sleeve. One final move that would close our story completely. 1 year after Sarah started at Page Turner, the company threw its annual gala at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. It was a black-tie affair celebrating our biggest authors and partners, the kind of event the old Michael would have found intimidating. The new Michael had helped plan it. Emma looked stunning in an emerald dress that matched her eyes. We posed for photos, mingled with industry titans, and laughed with our team. Sarah was there too, having proven herself as a valuable asset to the company. She'd rebuilt relationships with major publishers, secured partnerships we'd been chasing for years, and mentored junior staff with unexpected patience. She'd earned her place. We'd achieved a professional détente, cordial when we crossed paths, but never personal. It worked. Midway through the evening, I stepped to the microphone to make the annual founders' speech. The room quieted, hundreds of faces turning toward the small stage. 4 years ago, I was at the lowest point of my life. I just finalized a divorce, left my stable job, and decided to risk everything on a crazy idea. People thought I'd lost my mind. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Maybe I had. But sometimes losing your mind is the only way to find yourself. I caught Sarah's eyes across the room. She was standing near the back, champagne glass frozen halfway to her lips. Tonight, I want to talk about second chances and poetic justice. This company exists because someone once told me I wasn't ambitious enough, that I was coasting through life. I smiled. They were right. I was. But what they didn't understand is that ambition without purpose is just noise. Success without integrity is just numbers on a screen. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out an envelope. Not just any envelope, the original manila envelope that Sarah had placed on our coffee table 4 years ago. I'd kept it all this time, though I'd never been entirely sure why. We've all been handed things we didn't ask for. Rejection letters. Pink slips. Divorce papers. I held up the envelope so the room could see it. This envelope contained my divorce papers. They were delivered to me on what should have been a day of celebration, by someone who decided I was no longer useful to her ambitions. The room was silent now, the tension palpable. Emma squeezed my hand encouragingly. I kept them as a reminder. Not of bitterness. Bitterness is poison. But of transformation. These papers represent the moment I had to choose. Stay broken or rebuild better. I chose better. We all chose better. I gestured to Ramon, to our team. Everyone in this room represents what happens when people refuse to stay down. I walked off the stage, weaving through the crowd toward the back where Sarah stood. Her face had gone pale, and I could see her hands trembling. I stopped in front of her, the envelope between us one final time. You asked me once if there was a chance for us to start over, I said quietly, though the microphone on my lapel carried my words through the sound system. I'd forgotten to turn it off, or maybe I hadn't. I said no because you were looking for a safety net, not a partner. But I've thought about it a lot since then. She looked like she might cry or flee, I couldn't tell which. Sarah Chen, you were right about me. I was coasting. I needed to be pushed out of my comfortable life to discover what I was capable of. So thank you. I held out the envelope. These papers changed my life for the better. They freed me to become someone I'm proud of. Someone ambitious, driven, and successful, all the things you said you needed. She stared at the envelope like it might bite. I'm not returning them in anger, I continued. I'm returning them because I'm done carrying them. They've served their purpose. Whatever we were, whoever we were, that story is finished. This is me closing that chapter completely, with gratitude instead of grief. Slowly, she took the envelope from my hands. Tears were streaming down her face now. I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice barely audible even through the MC for all of it. I know. And I forgive you. But more importantly, I hope you've forgiven yourself. I smiled genuinely. You're doing good work here, Sarah. Keep doing it. Not for me or anyone else. For you. I reached up and turned off my lapel MIC, letting the next words be just between us. Everyone deserves a second chapter. You're writing yours. Make it a good one. Then I turned and walked back to Emma, who wrapped her arms around me like she'd never let go. The room erupted in applause, not for humiliation but for closure, for the kind of emotional honesty that people rarely witness. Several people were wiping their eyes. Later that night, as Emma and I sat on our apartment balcony overlooking the city, she asked, "How do you feel?" "Light," I said, surprising myself with the truth of it. Like I've been carrying a backpack full of rocks and finally set it down. "Do you think she'll be okay?" "Eventually. She's tougher than she looks. And she's learning that success isn't a destination, it's who you become while chasing it." My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Thank you doesn't cover it. But thank you. For the job, the grace, and the closure. You deserved none of what I gave you and gave me far more than I deserved in return. I hope I can become half the person you are. S. I showed Emma the text. She smiled. Are you going to respond? No. Some stories end with the last line, not with an epilogue. I deleted the message and pulled Emma closer. 4 years ago, Sarah had served me divorce papers on her day of triumph, treating our marriage like a business transaction that no longer served her bottom line. Tonight, I'd returned those papers not as revenge but as release, for both of us. She'd taught me an invaluable lesson. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is the best thing for you. The loss that breaks you can also be the catalyst that makes you. I'd built a multimillion-dollar company, published best-selling novels, and found real love with someone who valued partnership over hierarchy. But the real success wasn't any of that. The real success was sitting here, genuinely wishing my ex-wife well, with no need for her validation or her regret. I'd won not by destroying her but by becoming someone who didn't need to win at all. And as I looked out over the city lights, Emma's head on my shoulder, I realized that was the sweetest victory of all, the one where everyone gets to start again. The divorce papers were delivered 4 years ago on a day of celebration. Tonight, they were finally returned on a night of liberation. Our story was over. And both of our new stories were just beginning.